Good morning. Good morning. Hey, thank you for being here today. Before we move forward, I just want to acknowledge something really quick because maybe you noticed, maybe you not. I don't know if you pay attention to this sort of thing, but something very special happened up here just a little bit ago. I just want to give acknowledgement to it. I'm the whole team leading us in worship and stuff. I know Victor's been going through some stuff, but I just want to give praise where it's due. And Victor pushing through and really taking us to the places that matter. The entire team just kind of leading us in that. And I also want to say thank you to Omar, who sat in on drums today, a friend of mine who filled in and did a great job. I just got a couple things before we move on. Today, we've been having our classes go on, the Next Steps classes every weekend this month. Last weekend, the people in the class, I kind of threw a curveball because I was looking over the curriculum and there was no way we were going to cover it in 1 week, so we extended it. So today is actually going to be part B of the 301 of the gifts class, and then we're going to get into the 401, the evangelism stuff next week and kind of wrap that up. I know there's been some people that said, well, I wish I knew. Well, we announced it, but we're going to do it again right after the beginning of the year. So we're going to start off from the 101 and go all the way through once again. So if you missed it this time, don't worry about it. We're going to get through the holidays, and we're going to get into the new year. And so if you haven't had a chance to go through those classes, you're going to have another chance real soon. And so that's going to be coming up at the beginning of the year. Lastly, before we get to the message here, week from Tuesday is kind of a big day in this country. It is voting day. And so what I'm asking for you to consider is this. This is obviously every election they say this is the biggest one of our lifetime. It's a big election. And so I am encouraged myself, and I'm going to encourage you as well to fast next week. I'm gonna go. Actually, we talked about Sunday. I'm not gonna do Sunday. I will do Tuesday because Sunday I got class and I got to eat with my people. So I'm gonna fast on Tuesday, day of the election, and do that. And I would encourage you at some point. Maybe it's this week, maybe it's next week, but do that as well because it is important. And so our country is kind of broken and broken up into sections right now, and just a lot of anger, a lot of assumptions, a lot of projection. We need God to do something very special in our country. And so what are you coming up here for, Dave? Okay, I'll get that. Yeah, sure. Yes, that's actually a great segue, Dave. Good for you. We have our prayer night next Sunday night. We do on the first Sunday of every night. That is a perfect time for an election type thing. Good on you, Dave. Look at you all Holy Spirit inspired. All right. As we get into the message today, I've got a few questions that I want you to wrestle with periodically through the message today. And my hopes, like this message is for the doubters. This message is for the people who feel like maybe God has left them. This message is for the people who are looking for God in the midst of situations and don't really see Him. This message is for the people who think it's all about you. This message is for us today. We're going to be looking at the life of Joseph. And first question I wanted you to wrestle with today is kind of we started up, get going today is what would you be willing to go, or what would you be willing to do or go through if you absolutely knew that God was with you? What would you be willing to do? What would you be willing to go? Would you be willing to take a next step in something? Maybe you'd be willing to confess something. Maybe it would be to start something. But what would you be willing to do if you absolutely knew that God was with you? We're going to be looking at a guy named Joseph today. And we're going to jump to not the beginning of the story. We're going to jump towards the end of the story here. We're going to start in a verse here in chapter 41 of Genesis, verse 41. And it says this. It says, "So Pharaoh said to Joseph, I hereby put you in charge of the whole land of Egypt." That is huge. Egypt at the time, biggest, most powerful nation in the world. For Pharaoh to say, I'm going to put you in charge of all the land of Egypt. That's a 4-chair turn. That is a golden buzzer. That is, I'm picking you over everybody else. I mean, this is monumental for this guy. it's especially monumental when you get into some of his story and how he ended up in that place. And that's what I want to look at today, because I think if we look at the course of Joseph's story, we're going to see a lot of ourselves in that. And so that's what we're going to be doing today. We jumped in at the end of the story, but that's not where the story starts off. We're first introduced to Joseph about 4 chapters earlier. I want to pick it up in verse 2 of chapter 37. It says, this is the account of Jacob's family line. Joseph, a young man of how old? How old? You got math, so you got to like project so I can hear you. All right? So 17. He was tending flocks with his brothers. 17. Some of you can remember not too long ago you were 17. Some of us, 17 was a long way back. You remember when you were 17. Now, most of us in this room probably didn't grow up real wealthy, real affluent in your families. Like, you can probably relate to having some struggle in your life. I'm one of those people. We struggled, especially earlier on. It was tough, and so Joseph would have been right there with us. I don't know how many people, how many 17-year-olds at that time, if you're 17 years old at all, thinking, I'm going to grow up, I'm going to become the second most powerful person in the most powerful nation in all of the world. Like, that wasn't on my radar at 17. That's probably not on your radar at 17. It wasn't on Joseph's radar at 17. He was having dreams, but he wasn't connecting those dots. He wasn't like, that's what this means. This is where I'm going, because he isn't living in Egypt at the time. He's with his father in his father's house in a land, by today's traveling standards, it's not that far away, but in those days, it was a long ways off. So, he's dreaming these dreams. You could have asked him at the time, what would be the biggest dream that he would have had, and he wouldn't have said that. That's why I am convinced, in terms of our dreams, I don't want my dreams. I want his dreams. I can guarantee you, if I said, write down on a piece of paper your biggest dream for yourself and give it to God, I guarantee you he's going to hand it back and say, it's not big enough. You're not dreaming big enough. You're not looking enough. You're not confident enough. There's more out there. The story is better. The story is bigger. And if you were to give God that piece of paper, I'm sure he would give it back and say, but I got more for you. We see that in Isaiah 55, verse 8 and 9. It says, for my thoughts are not your thoughts. My ways are not your ways. Like, my ways is so much bigger. Like, you think you're dreaming big, but my ways are even bigger. My thoughts are even better for you. Whatever you want for good, I want better for you. And so this is what God is saying, and this is what Joseph is going through at that time. He would never have been big enough, and so I want God's dreams for my life. So how did Joseph get here? Well, he has some dreams, has a dream. Tells it to his brothers. Gets his brothers mad. Brothers take him out, they throw him in a pit. They contemplate what to do with him. Some say kill him. They ended up selling him off to slavery. Like, I don't, like, what would make a family do that to you? Like, I've thought about doing that to some of my siblings. Not you, Kiki, the other ones. But why would they want to do that to me? You know, you think, what would make the siblings want to do that to you? Joseph probably thought at that moment, this is the worst day of my life. The worst. But we have the luxury of knowing the story. And so we could look at him and say, baby boy, if you only knew. Like, things are going to get a lot harder than this. I mean, even in this point in our life, like some of us at different stages in our life, we talk with somebody who's maybe a little bit younger and maybe going through something for a first time. You know, their first broken heart, their first lost a job, and they think that this is it. And you just want to comfort them, but you're also thinking, it's going to get worse than this. Right? You've had that experience. I've had that experience. But Joseph, in that moment, 17, betrayed by his family. How could it get any worse? But watch this. Chapter 37, verse 28 says, so when the Ishmaelites who were Midianite traders, came by, Joseph's brothers pulled him out of the cistern, out of the pit, and sold to them for 20 pieces of silver. And the traders took him to where? To Egypt. He was sold to slave traders. Wait. We just read in chapter 41, verse 41, Joseph, he ascends to the second highest place. Where? In Egypt. See, Joseph wasn't going to get there on his own. Joseph had no intention of going to Egypt. There was no way in his mind, in his thinking, in his dreaming, that he was going to end up over there. But in this moment, in this hardship, something starts working where God is positioning and working something out in Joseph's life. They take him to Egypt. And he's sold into the house of a guy named Potiphar, who was captain of Pharaoh's guard, of the palace guard. Now, you and I, we know chapter 41, verse 41 is coming. Joseph doesn't know that. Joseph doesn't have any idea that chapter 41, verse 41 is coming. All he knows is right now, this is probably how I die. These are the circumstances that I don't get out of. I am a slave. Like my whole world, my family's gone, everything that I know is gone. This is how I go. But we have the luxury of how the story goes, so we can see that it was actually preparation and positioning rather than punishment. Now, in order for Joseph to ascend to the second highest level of the most powerful nation in the world, he's probably going to have to know military tactics. He's probably going to have to know some military language. He's probably going to have to know some military strategy. Now, come on. At 17, how much of that do you think he knows? Probably not a whole lot. Where do you think a good place for him to learn that stuff would be? Probably in the house of the captain of the guard. You think maybe he heard some conversations, maybe Potiphar brought him in on some stuff, and maybe he learned some things and gleaned some things in that moment. It's possible that in that moment, he's hearing this stuff. If he had stepped into the position of chapter 41, verse 41, at 17, it wouldn't be a blessing. It would be a crushing. And so God had something in store for Joseph at this time, but it's not what Joseph would have chosen. We all want to get to our chapter 41, verse 41. But we don't really like the route that God takes us to get there. We're not real happy with some of the things that we have to go through that God is doing in preparing us for something down the road. Do you want God's immeasurably better and more in your life? Well, you're going to have to go through Potiphar's house. Like, that's not appealing to anybody. We want the blessing. We want the highly favored. We want coming in and going out. We want all of that. We don't want this other stuff. Have you ever ridden passenger in a car with somebody going to a destination and they're taking a route that you know is not the fastest route? And you're barking out directions. Oh, you should try this. Oh, you should go this way. You should go that way. That's totally me. You don't want to ride with me as passenger. That's why I choose to drive on my own. But if you are unfortunate enough to drive with me as passenger, I will tell you, like, I literally, when I was a younger man, I was much less wise. Like, I told a guy, like, go here, just pull over, get out, I'll drive. I know it's your car, I'm going to drive, right? This is me, and this is you, and this is us in a lot of our life. Like, we know where we want to go, and we know the fastest way to get there, but it seems like God is taking us on a different route that we're not real comfortable with. Have you been there? Like, God, what are you doing to me? What are you doing to my family? What are you doing to my health? What are you doing to my finances and my relationship? What are you doing? Here's a phrase that I want to sink in to all of us today. And this is the phrase, I'm getting ready. I'm getting ready. All right. Ladies, take a breather and hang out for a second. Fellas, let me holler at you. If you have an appointment or a date, and your wife or girlfriend says to you, I'll just be a minute, I'm getting ready, what does that mean? Nothing. It means nothing. I'm getting ready, it'll just be a minute is an indefined amount of time, yes? Like, I can plant a garden and harvest it. I can grow hair and I'll be ready in a minute, I'm getting ready. There are times where that indefined amount of time is reality in those situations, but it's also reality in terms of what God is doing in our lives a lot of times. He says, I'm getting you ready. What does that mean? I'm ready now. You're not ready now. I want to go now. You don't want to go now. You're not ready now. I got something for you. I just need you to trust me. I'm getting ready is an indefinite amount of time, but that mentality is what we have to have. If we're not where we're going, we have to realize that means he's getting us ready. He's preparing us. Going on, verse 1 and 2 of chapter 39, it says, when Joseph was taken to Egypt by the Ishmaelite traders, he was purchased by Potiphar, an Egyptian officer. Potiphar was captain of the guard for Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. The Lord was with Joseph. Does that make anybody else scratch their head? Like if Joseph is filling out an application or something, what is he putting as his occupation at that time? Slave. Slave. He's a slave, but God is with him? Like how? Wait. How does that work? He was with them even at that moment. I asked that question because there's this dark kind of unspoken thing within the church that when you see somebody going through a hard time, you sometimes wonder if there's a secret sin or if they're bad. Like good things happen to good people, bad things happen to bad people. But in this moment, I know you guys don't think that, but you might know somebody who thinks that. You might have come across somebody who thinks that, like if somebody's struggling, they probably deserve it. But right here, we see very clearly, Joseph is not only a slave, but God is with him. In that difficulty, in that moment, in that hardship, in that trial, in that storm, God is with Joseph. And he's with you in your storm and the thing that you're going through. You need to know today, and you need to hear me say that God is with you. Maybe it's an addiction, a broken relationship, loss of a job. God is with you. I want you to breathe that in. God is with you. Joseph is serving in Potiphar's house, and he's successful, and he continues to climb the ladder and get some clout, but there was a problem. Potiphar had a wife, and she was thirsty. If you don't know what that means, ask a grandkid. Now, our Bible doesn't give her name, but if you look through different texts, I found out her name is Zuleika. She's not named in here, and honestly, I didn't know that name until this week, getting ready for this. I've always just called her Potiphar, because she wasn't named in our Bible. And so this wife of Potiphar was Potiphar. She was hot for Joseph. She makes a pass at him. Question: was this a temptation for Joseph? Now, I don't want the Sunday morning answer, he's a man of God. What does it take for a man to get in the mood? Right? You're giggling. A heartbeat. Breath. That's about it. Now, guys, think back to when you're 17, 18, 19. Would it have been a temptation? Absolutely. Absolutely. It would have been a temptation. But look what happens in verses 8 and 9 of 38. It says, but Joseph refused. Look, he told her, my master trusts me with everything in his entire household. No one here has more authority than I do. He has held back nothing from me except you because you are his wife. He's not saying it's not a temptation. He's just saying these are the boundaries. How could I do such a wicked thing? It would be a great sin against God. That part intrigues me. That part intrigues me. Like, if I'm going to put myself in his shoes, how am I holding on to God at that point? I mean, he's been betrayed by his family. He's sold into slavery. He's in a land that's not his own. He is so far from home. How is he holding on to God? Like, if you or I need to hear from God, we can open up our Bible. There was no Bible. He can't go on an app. He can't listen to a podcast. They didn't exist. He didn't have a church. He didn't have a church family. Where is he getting this? How is he holding on to God at this time? I'm going to suggest maybe he wasn't. Maybe it was God holding on to him. In that moment, in that situation, in that environment, in those circumstances, in that storm, in that desperation, it's God holding on to him. If you've ever gone through a major storm in your life, and you're really honest, you have to admit it wasn't your amazing strength that you were holding on to God with. It was God absolutely holding on to you. I see this with Joseph going on. We can't do that on our own. That's why it's called amazing grace. Because we can't do that in our own strength. We have to have him come in our situation and be what we cannot. And in that moment, that's what's happening with Joseph. And I'm willing to bet there are some people here today or maybe watching online, you need to know that God is holding on to you. He's not going to leave you. He's not going to forsake you. So, despite the temptation, Joseph takes off. And Potiphar, now jilted, makes up a lie and tries to get Joseph, says that Joseph tries to force himself on her. And Joseph gets thrown under the jail, which is what's going to happen. If you try and force yourself on my wife, I'm throwing you under the jail or underground. Your choice. That's the way it goes. There is an accusation made against this guy. And so he's thrown, he's gone from the pit into slavery, into Potiphar's house. He rises up. He's doing the right things. He's getting promoted, and this hussy lies on him. And he gets thrown into prison. Seriously, God? I'm doing what I'm supposed to be. I'm doing the best I can here. The best I can. Have you ever felt like I'm doing the best I can and this stuff keeps happening? What are you doing to me, God? Like, if there was a book called My Life Sucks, Joseph is on the cover. And like, not in one of those cute little glamour poses, you know, with the soft background and the sparkles and everything. Just like, what? You know? That's how he's on the cover. What's happening? Why is this happening to me? But again, Joseph is being prepared for something. He rises up in the ranks of the prison. If God can't trust him in the prison, how is he going to trust him in the palace? It goes on. Verse 21, chapter 39 says, but the Lord was with Joseph in prison. Again, I thought if God was with you, you wouldn't be in prison. That doesn't make sense to some of our teaching and some of our doctrine and some of how we think about God. Like, what? But it says very clearly here, God was with Joseph in the prison. And sometimes we go through the prison in order so that when we get the promotion, we can be promoted with humility. God is preparing us for something else. It goes on, it says, but the Lord was with Joseph in the prison and showed him his faithful love. And the Lord made Joseph a favorite with the prison warden. Before long, the warden put Joseph in charge of all the other prisoners and over everything that happened in the prison. The warden had no more worries because Joseph took care of everything. The Lord was with him and caused everything he did to succeed. In the pit, in Potiphar's house, now in prison, the Lord has been with him. It hasn't been Joseph holding on to God. It's been God holding on to Joseph. We can't say in our situations, God, when things get better, I'll do better. If he can't trust us with what we have now, how is he going to trust us with what's next? I get you're in a mess. I get that it's difficult. But we cannot lose focus of what God has put in front of us, who he has called us to be, the type of impact that we're supposed to have. In that moment, in your prison, in what feels like slavery, in the storm, and in all of that, God has put you strategically in that place for a purpose. If we cannot function in a way that honors him there, how are we going to do it with what's next? This is what we see with Joseph. That brings us to chapter 40. Chapter 40 is just all about his time in prison. He's with the cupbearer who basically tastes the wine for the Pharaoh, which is a cool job unless somebody's actually trying to kill the Pharaoh, then it's not such a great job. And a baker. And they both have a dream, and they can't interpret it. And so Joseph has some experience with dreams, and so he interprets it for him. And he tells the cupbearer, look, if this means you're going to get out of here, you're going to get out of here, and when you do, just remember me when you talk with Pharaoh again. And then he turns to the baker, and he says, not so much for you. You're going to die. In 3 days, you're going to die. So the baker dies, the cupbearer goes free. Cupbearer bounces, but the cupbearer does not necessarily remember Joseph when he gets back to the Pharaoh. He treats him like we do in the people's yearbooks that we signed. Have a cool summer. I'll always remember you. Who was that person? And so he's left there in prison. He's waiting. He's waiting. 2 years pass, and Pharaoh has a dream. Joseph is now 30 years old. 30 years old. Almost half of his life has now been spent in prison or as a slave. Remember, pit, 17. Like a big chunk of his life, this is all he's known. And now he has an opportunity to stand in front of Pharaoh. The cupbearer is like, Pharaoh, that thing that you and I had a couple years ago, like that's water on the bridge. We're good now. But I remember this guy. He told me about my dreams. He might be able to help you. So Joseph is put in front of Pharaoh. Joseph now is on his way to chapter 41, verse 41. A stranger, a foreigner, a slave, a prisoner, on his way to becoming the second most powerful person in Egypt. I don't know what you're going through. I don't know all the things that you're wrestling with. But there's a promise in Isaiah that I think is applicable. It was applicable for Joseph, even though it was after Joseph. It's applicable for us. 43 verse 19 says, behold, I'm doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? I will make a way in the wilderness and the rivers in the desert. Do you not see it? Like, open your eyes. I'm doing something here. I'm preparing you for something. I'm going to make a way in a wilderness, in a place where you may feel lost. You may feel scared. You don't know the way. I'm going to make a way. And in your desert, in the dryness, in the parch, when you feeling like you're going to die, I'm going to put rivers there that are going to sustain. I'm going to make a way. I'm doing something new if you're just going to hold on. God having us in his hand doesn't mean we're not going to go through big situations. God having us in his hand means we can go through big situations. It's him holding on to us. And if you're feeling like you're going through a storm or a season and you're feeling like giving up, maybe you've even written the note, like you're ready to check out. God's making a way. And he's holding on to you. If you feel like you can't hold on to God, it's okay. He's holding on to you. How do I know this? 1 year ago today, this season, the most difficult thing I've ever been through. The most difficult season I've ever been through in my life. Everything that I knew about myself as a husband, as a father, as a pastor, as a son of God. Everything is being shaken. And I wish I could say it was my fervent strength. It was because I'm so awesome that I just held on to God and he got me through, but I can't say that. It's because he was holding on to me. He did it for Joseph. He did it for me. He's going to do it for you.
There's no other name but the name that is Jesus. He who was and is still and will be through it all. So come with me in the space between all the things that's seen and this reckoning. Now I know I will never be alone. I know I will never be alone. Be another in the fire, standing next to me. There'll be another in the waters, holding back the seas. Should I ever need reminding how good you've been to me, I count the joy from every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be. And I can see the light in the darkness as the darkness bows to him. I can hear the roar in the heavens as the space between waves thin. I can feel the ground shake beneath us as the prison walls cave in. Nothing stands between us. Nothing stands between us. There'll be another in the fire, standing next to me. There'll be another in the water, holding back the seas. Should I ever need reminding how good you've been to me, I count the joy from every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be. I count the joy from every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be. I count the joy from every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be. I count the joy from every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be. Count the joy from every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be.
Church, if you can identify with some of the things that we talked about today in terms of being in the middle of your storm or your situation, and you've wondered, I would encourage you just put your hands out as a symbol here, just saying, God, I need you. I need you to hold on to me, because I don't know that I can do it on my own. But I know you're faithful, and I know you're good, and I know you're here with me. God, I just pray and bless my brothers and sisters here today, knowing that you are preparing and positioning them for something you are taking them to, and it may not look like it, it may not have the optics like we're stepping into full blessing and the full heart, but Lord, you are preparing us and taking us to that space. God, help us to be patient now. Help us to be trusting now. Help us to have confidence now, and where we're short and where we can't do it on our own, we're asking for your amazing grace to hold on to us and to take us through. Let us to be faithful in the places that you have us, knowing that you're taking us to someplace new. God, I just speak that over my family today, my brothers and my sisters, those that have got this thing worked out and those that have no idea. They feel like they know what they're doing. But you're the same God, and you're faithful. I'm grateful to you today for who you are, for what you're doing. And so, church, may you know the presence of your God around you. May you find his favor, know his voice. May you be aware of his leading. May he guide your steps and your words. May you find confidence that you are his and that he is yours. May you walk in victory, even if it doesn't look like the victory is around you. May you know he's taken you somewhere. May you be confident. May you be secure. May you be ready for what's next. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, amen. All right, family. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you for joining us online from all over the country and even out of this country. We know we have people who are joining in. If there's anything we can do for you, please let us know. We got connection cards. We got the online connection cards, as Mandy said. We want a beer for you. If there's anything you would like to hang out and pray about, we got some people back here in this overflow room that would love to do that with you. Thank you, guys. I'm so proud of you. I'm so expectant and so excited for what God is going to do in your lives. You may not feel it right now, but you're going somewhere, and we're going together. I'm grateful for you. Be blessed today. Thank you, guys.